Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the Luke and Alex Comicast, where each week we take a look at a different comic arc or graphic novel. Last episode, I chose New X-Men Volume 1, E is for Extinction, written by Grant Morrison, and this week, Alex chose Brian Michael Bendis' Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 1.
Okay, we can get into it.
Yeah, so, I mean, right away...
Before, right?
Hmm?
You read this before.
Yeah, I had read it before, but it had been a long time. Probably like 3-4 years.
Yeah.
So
probably forgot a lot of it. So
yeah. I mean, right away, I guess first thing is immediately that is a change is the spider itself. Which what did you think about that?
Yeah, it's just like I'm not gonna lie, I don't exactly like remember how the original what the nature of the original spider was.
Well, the original was it was radioactive.
The radioactive spider, and this one's kind of like experimented on by Oscorp. It's like it has his Oz formula. Yeah, I just didn't remember I don't know exactly how the spider got like irradiated and stuff like that in the original. I don't know like what it was related to, but I know in this, it is a little bit different.
Yeah.
The spider is kind of like his test subject for his superhuman formula.
Yeah. I think for me, what kind of struck me right away was that, and I think you kind of see it throughout this arc, is Bendis is really, because he now has the freedom to kind of, that he's not held down by the rules of the Earth 616 canon.
Yeah.
He really kind of likes to tie things together. Like there's a lot of kind of moments where the world feels much tighter and more cohesive, and I think this is a great example of that, where
it's like Osborn.
Yeah, Osborn and Peter are really linked together. Moving forward, I think the next thing we kind of can look at is the depiction of Peter, which I think that I would say this probably was the biggest difference to me compared to kind of 616 that I kind of forgot about. He's angsty. He's an angsty teenager. It's interesting, and I really love. I know you're a big fan of Brian Michael Bendis.
Yeah, he's great.
I would say I'm less so, but I definitely think that like he has a way when it comes to writing like teenagers and their like dialogue.
That's a thing. Yeah, that's why.
Like it feels so natural. And I honestly can't think of like a lot of other comic writers who are able to write dialogue of teenagers just as easily as he does. And even, this was, now, gosh, this is 20 years old, which is kind of scary. It's kind of scary, yeah. But it still like sounds, like believable for the most part, there's
some a little dated, but
not having cell phones is obviously is one of the big ones, but like, and there's some other stuff that I think we can get to later on, but overall, I really, it was kind of refreshing to just see this, to see the kind of interactions that, the kind of characters had around Peter.
Definitely like what you're saying about his Bendis being able to write teenager dialogue. It probably has something to do with, I don't know how old his kids are, but I know he has a bunch of kids.
Mhm.
And I know that I don't know at the time of writing this like what age his kids were, but that could also be a factor that definitely contributes to him being able to write such natural dialogue is just that exposure to young people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think of some of the other best Bendis stuff. Like I feel like that I've enjoyed has been have a lot of younger characters in it.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the other things I kind of wanted to look at, because I think it's you kind of see it very early on, is the depiction of Mary Jane is very different than from the Earth 616 Mary Jane, and I think it's I think I kind of prefer Ultimate Mary Jane, honestly.
I really like this Ultimate Mary Jane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just, Mary Jane is, I mean, I think she's a good character in Earth 616, but I think that Bendis just makes her feel much more human, whereas I think sometimes in 616 she kind of can feel a little flat at times.
Hmm.
It's nice to see like that. I think Bendis kind of embraces that, like, yeah, like Mary Jane can be beautiful and smart, like it doesn't have to just be like a one or the other thing. Um
Not just like a pretty face or whatever. Yeah,
yeah,
she's definitely multifaceted.
yeah,
I really enjoy her budding relationship with Peter. I think it's really well done.
yeah. I think it's really cute too how they handle it, where it's like, I remember there's one moment where somebody like teases them about if they're together, and like you can tell like they're both kind of embarrassed at the beginning of
Mhm.
the run, and it's just like, oh, it's cute teen romance.
Yeah,
uh,
it's cute.
yeah. Moving forward, we have uh Aunt May and Uncle Ben.
Yes.
You get hippie Uncle Ben, which
Uncle Ben's great in
I'm
this.
here for. I'm here for hippie Uncle Ben. I like it. It's a little different, I would say, but I think it works, and I mean, I think considering his philosophy, I think it makes sense.
Yeah,
Um,
great power, great responsibility. I mean, in this, we should note that the philosophy doesn't exactly come from Uncle Ben. I mean, it comes out of his mouth, but he says it's Peter's father who
yeah, that
said
was
that.
yeah. You're exactly correct. Yeah, that was also another. Speaking of Peter's father, he has more. He had more influence in this than I first realized.
Hmm.
Like when Peter um is in the lab um with Harry,
Yes.
they're like talking about it. I'm trying to see if I can find.
You're talking about how all the like tools and stuff down there were like his father's and stuff, right?
Yeah, and
The
I remember
yeah,
yep.
the wet fluid formula.
Yeah, that was really cool to me. Again, like that, I think that goes back to kind of like the cohesiveness of the story that Bendis was
Hmm.
telling. Um,
Yeah, Bendis is coming from an interesting perspective, like writing this. I mean, this is like a universe all to himself. He can do whatever he wants. Yet he's, choosing to, in a lot of ways, stay, true to a lot of what makes, Spider-Man, the characters, the relationships, but also, yeah, he's also, like you said, making things more cohesive from this kind of like, it almost makes me think of like, um, life itself, kind of like messy or whatever. But like, imagine you could like look at a whole life and be like, okay, I'm going to kind of like rewrite this in a little bit different way. That's kind
yeah,
of what he's doing because he knows the entire Spider-Man, mythos, the entire story.
yeah. I mean, I always feel like with Bendis, I think that he's a writer that I think does his best work when he's kind of not restricted by canon, and by
Mhm.
by like these set rules that he has to follow. And I think I think sometimes you see when he still tries to break it, or try to do something that lets him get around it, like with X-Men, you know. But I
Well,
definitely,
yeah, like taking the past X-Men into the future was an interesting thing. Like I
mhm.
don't know.
I definitely think that with Bendis, this and I think his Daredevil are his best to me personally. Um,
Mm.
I think I just feel like this, like Ultimate Spider-Man was just such a good fit for him, and his style. Um, so moving forward here, one of the things too I noted was that so the original origin story pretty much gets if I'm not mistaken, it's told entirely in one issue, um, which is really interesting because uh, Bendis takes it slow. He takes it really slow, and he actually
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
lets it develop more. Um, and I think I was a little bit on the fence with it. Um, I felt it was a little bit slow early on, but at the same time, I think you can see the benefit, which is that it allows him to kind of develop what what Peter's like, what Aunt May's like, what Uncle Ben is like, kind of before uh obviously Uncle Ben dies and Peter actually takes the mantle of Spider-Man. I'm curious as to what you think about that.
Yeah, I was, that kind of caught me off guard when I realized that, oh, this entire first 7 issues is really like his origin story. Kind of expected it to be like a one shot deal, like you said. I believe the original was, but I, I mean, I enjoyed it. I didn't feel like it was too slow. The one thing I think that maybe makes it feel slow, especially the fact that we know this story, like everybody kind of knows Spider-Man story, even if you don't read the comics. You see it in shows, you see it in movies. So it's like we kind of know it, but I feel like Bendis does enough. It's an original enough take that I'm still interested. I'm still enjoying it. And
Mhm.
and again, he's just like he's a character writer. He's great with dialogue. Really, I enjoyed every moment of this, even if it did feel a little bit slow. I wouldn't say that really dominated my perception of like the whole arc. Like I didn't feel like this was too slow.
I mean, I would say for me, I mean, it just felt like maybe an issue too long. It really wasn't like oh, this is awful. I can't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was just like,
Oh, good.
yeah, it just kind of was taking its time, and that's okay sometimes. Sometimes you want to just go slow with things, and let them kind of simmer.
I think what I liked about it being kind of slower is like the fact that Uncle Ben's um, death doesn't come until later. I think that works well because it really, it builds up Uncle Ben as a character, so we're attached to him, like Peter is kind of, and we kind of understand the relationship better. And then when he's gone, it's like, you kind of get why it really shakes him. I mean, you don't really have to imagine too much because like we get a lot of Uncle Ben.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the other things that was interesting to me was how I think Bendis really kind of pulls the story, um, like with kind of the suit. It's like everything just kind of feels so weaved and crafted, and that was one of the moments I really loved was when you see him with the he has like the prototype suit that doesn't have the webs, but it just has the it's just basically the costume without the webs or the spider symbol. um
Yes.
like I was like, oh, that's such a cool
Yeah, it's
little
like
touch.
the origin of the costume in this is kind of connected to his whole fighting history or whatever, or like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, as a
interesting
wrestler. Yeah.
as a wrestler.
And I guess this kind of gives us a chance now that we're kind of talking about Peter in his suit and kind of I did want to definitely look at or talk about Mark Bagley as well, because I definitely think that he's a massive part of what made Ultimate Spider-Man.
I love the art.
Yeah, I really love the art as well. One of the things that was interesting to me was I like almost forgot how kind of coloring has changed over the last really in the span of the 20 years. I mean, I guess 20 years is a long time now that
Yeah.
I think about it, but like
Yeah.
it was just interesting to me because like I didn't realize how kind of different the coloring style is. It's like an interesting blend between kind of, I think, what the kind of style that the style we see today, which is very I think you see a lot of digital coloring, very clean, and then you kind of have this, which is like, it's interesting, like there's almost like an airbrushed effect to a lot of the colors,
Yeah.
and it's like really heavily saturated.
Yes.
It's very bright.
Very bright.
Yeah, it was just kind of like, it threw me off a little bit because I was like, huh, I didn't remember it looking like this. Because I think of Bagley and I think of him as such a modern artist,
Yeah.
Because when I think of young Peter, he's the artist I think of. And I think that he really, to me, I think he is the best Spider-Man artist when it comes to making a young, slender, slim build Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I just love, especially like I think he captures movement so well. And it's honestly impressive when he has to do or where, for instance, like Spider-Man is flipping or moving, and he has to like draw a number of miniature Spider-Men to create that illusion.
I like that. Yes.
It's like such a cool effect to me, and it's a really, I know that it definitely takes time, but the effect comes out amazing. I think so. Kind of moving forward, so we kind of got the bite, we got the wrestling. So one of the things I did want to stop at was the Liz Allen thing. That kind of seemed a bit interesting to me, and I kind of wonder how they would have, if that kind of thing would fly today.
What particularly are you pointing to?
When drunk Liz Allen is like
That
hitting yeah.
What I don't know, like what about that do you not think would oh, you mean what Flash says about her?
Yeah.
That, I mean, yeah, that that did catch me off guard too.
Yeah, I kind of didn't know that. I kind of didn't realize that was, because I thought Ultimate Spider-Man was like teenage. I was like, oh, I didn't expect.
This is pretty PG or
yeah,
PG.
And then he just kind of he drops out. I'm like, ooh, okay. That's not a very nice term to use, sir.
Hey, maybe we should specify exactly what we're talking about, just because like if people are listening to this,
yeah,
like he calls Liz a slut, Flash,
yeah,
and
when drunk Liz is trying to is making a move on Peter, it just kind of caught me off guard because I was like,
okay, we're going there, but I don't think it would really do so well today. I mean, it was only 20 years, but 20 years is, I guess, a decent enough time that wouldn't have been such a big deal to, I don't know, it's slut shaming.
Yeah, it was, definitely.
I mean, Flash, to be fair, is not like the best character. I mean, he's supposed to be kind of an idiot.
Yeah, he's kind of a asshole. Yeah. So I think going forward, I want to try to see if I can find a good thing to look at. I guess we can kind of stop with the conversation with Peter and Ben. I think I really like that conversation. I like you if you want to talk about it.
Which where
After the party.
Oh yes, the great power, great responsibility.
Yeah.
I'm just getting to that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was a great moment.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that, and I feel like before this conversation, Peter's definitely not the best. Like the whole time I'm kind of like shaking my head, like, oh, Peter, come on, man, get it together.
Yeah.
But this, and of course, it doesn't really sink in with him here yet until Ben's gone, and then he's like, okay, now I understand, and
yeah. So we can slide forward a bit. I want to get to. So yeah, we learn that Ben has been killed. We see that the man who killed him was a robber who Peter let basically escape.
About that, can I just like stop on that?
Sure.
I'm not. Is it just me, or is that not like entirely clear? Like, it doesn't seem like Peter really knows who the robber is. He kind of speculates that it's that other case that they get. Like, oh, imagine it's the same guy, and then he kind of just like assumes that this guy was the same guy who went to his house.
Well, I think that's what it, because he pulls out like the he pulls out like the guy's ID from his wallet. I think that, that's what I kind of took from it. Was that it was the same guy. Because then when they depict in the flashback art too, it looks like it's the same guy. But then again, I mean, it could be that Peter was like,
imagining that.
Yeah,
because it seemed like the first time we see him, like in the actual like depiction of like Aunt May, when Aunt May's talking about it, and then it keeps flashing back. He seems like he purposely makes the guy's face. I mean, he could just making shadowing out his face so that it's the big reveal afterwards. But
yeah,
it seems like when we're seeing the flashbacks with that guy in the killing Uncle Ben, that seems like that's just Peter in his mind being like, oh,
it could have been, yeah.
It never seems like 100% like certain to me. Like Aunt May or something doesn't confirm like that's the guy. It seems like Peter's just like, oh, this must be the guy.
I think that's really interesting. Actually, I'm trying to like look back.
To me, there's no proof. Like I never saw any proof that it was really him.
Yeah. Well, do we know though it was the robber? Correct. That we know for sure. We just don't know if that was if it was
But how do we know it was the robber that he let go for sure? Like I don't see any. Like it seems like he just assumes that, because what happens is they get this call, the police officers get this call like, oh, some guys just tried to rob a Popeyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, and then he's like, maybe it's the same guy. He's like, wouldn't that be convenient? And then Peter's just like, oh, it is the same guy, and he runs off and he's like, oh, that's the guy who I let go.
Yeah.
But that guy could not have been the guy who went for Uncle Ben.
Yeah. Now that's actually interesting. I'm looking at the. I mean, yeah. So Peter does say that face. It's, oh no, it can't be. So I'm guessing that it is the same guy who was the robber. We just don't know for sure if it was the killer of Uncle Ben.
Correct.
Okay.
I think that was what I got from it. I was like, okay, so that's the robber again, who he's confronting. But is that really the guy who killed Uncle Ben? There's no real proof of that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of an interesting thread that Bendis leaves open. And I guess part of me was like, I guess I kind of just like was like in Peter's mindset, I guess.
Yes.
Of like, But
It has to be him, right?
I think that was a really good observation. I kind of didn't realize.
Yeah, it was one thing. You know what made me think of that? Um, I I think I'm kind of thinking of another specific scenario where like this was the case in fiction. I'm not sure if I think it's Batman that I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of Batman, how in one of the movies, I think, like he thinks somebody's the killer and he thinks he's got him, and then it turns out to be someone else. I don't
Oh,
remember.
okay.
I don't know if you can remember what movie that was, but
I think it was The Dark Knight. All right, I don't know for sure though.
also like was it me? I know we're kind of going a little off topic, but like the 80s Batman with Michael Keaton,
Mhm.
I know Joker ends up being the guy who does it. I don't know
Yeah.
if he thinks it's someone else before that. But anyways, I think it was one of the Batman things that made me think of that. And I was like, oh, is he trying to do a similar thing here where it's like kind of ambiguous if the guy who he pins as the killer really is. And I think
Yeah.
I might have heard something like the psychology of that is like, you know, like people want to find someone to blame for something that's really, you know, a tragedy in their life, even
Mhm.
if like they're not being like very rational about like finding the correct person to blame.
Yeah.
So I think there could be Bendis could be working with the psychology of that psychology there.
Yeah. Um, and again, I think that's a kind of a great example there where we see. Uh, I mean, this is still young Peter, but I mean I mean he beats the man pretty badly. um, um,
Yeah, he goes kind of I mean he's emotional. Right?
yeah. Um, and that was like one of the things. I mean, I guess we can always ask the question of like how much of it is kind of Peter once he gets the powers versus how much of it is like I guess spider hormones in some way, like making him more aggressive. Because honestly, even after Uncle Ben dies, he still has a bit of a bite to him. Like when he's dealing with bullies.
That could also be the still the lingering effects of you know just tragedy that happened to him.
Yeah,
He's
shock.
just angry, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um,
Though I'm sure he's gotten a little bit more. Can I just say that like the whole Spider-Man transformation, I'm sure this is intentional with Bendis, is like very much feels like, you know, puberty. It's like that's what seems like is happening, right? Like
yeah,
he goes through these changes, gets a little stronger, you know, his whatever.
yeah.
I don't know. It feels I'm like, okay, so he's going through puberty. Cool.
Mhm. Yeah. I thought one of the things that was really cool, now that we're kind of talking about the transformation, is like the actual sequence and how Bendis kind of shows like the first time you see uh, truly suited up Spider-Man with the webs and spider and all, and how it like you see him and then you immediately flash back to like Peter's perspective and how he kind of like the difficulties that he actually had like trying to get into costume like without anybody else seeing him.
Yes.
I thought like that's one of those things that like I think that's such a nice touch because you know obviously I think sometimes you have like this suspension of disbelief with that kind of thing. You know, obviously you have the infamous Clark Kent. You know, just put the glasses on and nobody can tell. But I think it was nice how they how he kind of played it off like that. One thing that did seem a little interesting to me though was the fact that the pretty much like the whole class saw him get bit by the spider. Um, and then they see a superhero named Spider-Man who happens to have spider-like abilities.
Not to mention the fact that Peter suddenly loses the glasses,
Yeah.
becomes good at basketball,
Like,
you know, beats up the bullies.
yeah. I mean, I thought that was a little bit interesting. I think, yeah, I mean, part of it just seemed like, yeah, Peter kind of I mean, I think it happened quite a few times. Right? I think like Peter goes into things, at least Ultimate Peter kind of goes into things without fully thinking them through. And then like as he's doing it, he's like, well, this was a mistake, you know. So I kind of am curious because I have not kind of gone past volume 2 of this, so I'm kind of interested to see if that's a thread that gets examined later on.
You mean like him people being on him about him being Spider-Man?
Yeah, how loose his identity. Yeah.
I mean, I did just like recently read the 3rd volume, but I'm not going to spoil it for the sake of for the sake of people listening who might not want that.
Yeah. I will just say that his he seems he's just very headstrong, this Peter. And it makes sense for a teenager. I will say it's a little frustrating because he does some things where it's just like, no, Peter, don't do that.
Yeah, the guy's 15 years older than this, right? So it's like
he is.
Remember that. I'm always like, okay, this guy is like, he's like 15 years old. Like, I was so freaking dumb at 15.
Yeah.
So
now, one of the things I will say I didn't like about this was the Green Goblin. So, to those who don't know, basically, Norman Osborn actually chooses to basically get the same, I guess,
the formula.
Yeah.
It's a little different from what I understand, because like with Peter, I don't know if he explains it I think he does explain it in this arc. Like, Peter gets the enhanced abilities of a spider because the spider with Oz bites him. And what Norman wants is an enhanced version of himself by mixing the Oz formula with his own DNA instead of with a spider's DNA. So the goblin is supposed to be, like Norman getting the Oz formula, but instead of with a spider, with his own DNA.
Yeah, Norman gets the powers of Norman.
Yes, exactly.
I think for me, I mean, they also like, I know one of the characters makes a joke about it that like he just kind of looks like the Hulk. He just kind of looks like the Hulk to me, which is a little. I mean, he has the purple pants and the green. I don't know. I mean, it was just a little bit like. I just think that I don't know. I think there's a lot of things with Ultimate Spider-Man that have now kind of become iconic. I think that the Green Goblin, a little bit less so.
The only place that really like survives is in like the Ultimate Spider-Man show, which of course is like based on this. But like in general, I don't think that like that is the quintessential Goblin by any means.
Yeah. I think one of the things I do like with 616 Goblin is that he still maintains his intelligence. His sanity, that's a different story, but his intelligence is most of the time still there. This Goblin seems, he almost turns more into like a beast. Like you can hear he still like he can say like he says like Parker and stuff, but he's not like
he's a beast.
Yeah.
But like, to be fair, this is like only the first appearance of Goblin. And like having like read a little further, you might not remember, but like he does kind of like manage to change a little bit, like without going too deep into like spoilers, but he's not always kind of this mindless beast.
Yeah, that is true.
But yeah, I'm not a fan of like this first appearance of him where he's kind of just like just
yeah. So we kind of hit the last issue of this. So we're going into this fight. What were your feelings on the actual fight itself?
I mean, it's interesting because like it seems like Spider-Man is just trying to get him away from everyone, right? He's trying to get him away from the students, trying to get him away from even these what are they, like military or something? These copters that come after them.
Yeah, I think they're I do not remember. They're either it's the NYPD.
The NYPD, that's police. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. He seems like he's just trying to get this beast away from everyone. And generally the fight is kind of just like Osborn is like seems to be like stronger, more powerful, whatever. but he's also, like you say, not very intelligent, kind of just this like uncontrolled force
Mhm.
who has like he seems to want either Peter, Harry, or both of them.
Yeah.
But Peter is obviously in control of his mind, and he's able to kind of outsmart the Goblin ultimately.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't think it was a particularly engaging fight because, like we keep saying, he's not a very intelligent creature, and it's kind of just like Peter versus Beast. Okay.
Yeah, and it's mostly Peter dodging, to be honest. I think, I mean, one of the things that kind of just struck me was that, um, and I mean, it's kind of the nature, I think, of an origin, that you have basically 6 issues of no superhero stuff, or really, and not a ton in the way of action, and then this entire issue is pretty
Oh,
much just a fight scene, which was kind of interesting to me. Yeah, so like, all right, if we got 6 issues of waiting, so we get all the action in this one.
like honestly though, I kind of like the human drama of like Ben, at least of Bendis's writing here, like more than the action. Like I feel like I'm just like, okay, cool. He's fighting a monster. Can we get back to like the high school stuff?
Yeah, it's that was one of the things I would like. Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think I almost prefer the high school stuff when it comes to
Yeah,
this
I love it.
theater.
The
Like,
romance.
yeah, like the action isn't bad. It's just that, like, I think that Bendis. I mean, I'm really engrossed in kind of. I really love the dynamic of Peter and Mary Jane in Ultimate. I just think that he just writes both of them so well, and I feel like he really, I mean, considering in a way they're really his characters in this version, that he really just they just have so much depth to them,
Mm,
um and I just like watching them kind of grow together and go through difficulties in life together. It's
yeah.
it was kind of touching. And then
And
you see kind of in the aftermath, you feel bad for I felt bad for Harry. He took it pretty rough.
mm,
Um
I mean, it is his father.
yeah. Um
Pretty.
yeah. I mean, I guess we didn't talk about him much. What were your feelings on his interpretation?
I,
You
I
kind
like
of
I like Harry in this a lot. I think
yeah.
I think he's an interesting character. I mean, he's like at the same time he's this whatever popular guy, kind of a jock.
That's
Um,
yeah, that was what was interesting to me. That they kind of made him more of like a jock type.
yeah,
Um
he's like a multifaceted jock. Like he's
yeah.
also kind of hangs with Peter. Is kind of nice to him.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess that's the in some ways the kind of the difference I would say with this universe is that there's just a lot of characters who are more kind of multifaceted,
Oh yeah, for sure.
um like again, Mary Jane. It seems like I mean, it seems like she's relatively popular. I don't think she's uh
She's
like
not
the
like
most popular girl in the school, but I think she has a decent amount of friends, you know. Um and obviously she's still clearly very intelligent and
Brainy Jane,
yeah. Um and then yeah, you have Harry who's kind of friendly with Peter and the jocks. Um
but he has daddy issues.
yeah, you do have Flash. Flash I felt was a little bit weaker compared to, I mean, this kind of comes in hindsight. I think that Flash as a character has really been developed in the last few years. So it's not
Mm,
really fair to Bendis, but I think, yeah, I mean, I think that compared to a lot of these other characters who kind of get more depth added to them, he probably feels the most flat um,
yeah, I
of the
mean,
bigger side characters.
even like Kong or whatever, like
Yeah.
he's even like a better character than Flash. Flash is just like who cares about Flash, man? He's just like so stupid. I feel like that's just his role kind of is to just be this like dumb like kind of jerk. And then everybody else is kind of around him is kind of a little more interesting.
Yeah, I kind of like Kong. Like he honestly like he's kind of a funny character to me.
Yes.
Like and I feel like I don't know. Like, would you say that like Kong is a jerk. I mean, he's like
I
he's
I wouldn't exactly say like he's a jerk. Like that's too simple of a label. Like he's
yeah.
sometimes
Like
he
Flash
kind
is just a jerk. Like there's really not much that's redeeming about Flash in this.
of even Flash. Like I don't know about this issue, but just like overall, like having just like read into this, I wouldn't say like anyone's like just like 100% like a jerk. Flash is more, I would say, like not very self aware and kind of just uh doesn't seem to be very intelligent, I guess. It seems like Kong has a little more brains to him than Flash is what I'd say. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really think of Flash as being completely like malintentioned so much. He's
Mhm.
just kind of like stupid and does stupid things.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, it's definitely like I definitely think like what Kong did for Peter was a nice thing. I mean, like I mean, I kind of think of it like that must have been like if you put yourself into his shoes, you just have like a teammate who you haven't really talked to that much just come to you and be like, "Hey, can I like stay here for?" And you're just kind of like, "Okay," like that was that's pretty nice.
Nice. And then Flash is like a jerk. He's like, how can you let him stay
Yeah,
over? He's like, he's a teammate now. But Flash is of course all upset because Peter took his place on the team. But
yeah. One of the so we've hit the end point.
yeah.
So there were a few things I kind of wanted to touch upon before we kind of get to our ratings. I noticed one thing that Bendis does really well, and I mean I just think it's really impressive. Is he's really good with filler dialogue, like if you'll notice, like kind of dialogue that's just kind of not really plot relevant, but just fills in the world. Um, like if I can give, I'm trying to see if I can find a good example of that.
No, I totally see what you're saying. Like that's just like yeah, like that's totally a Bendis thing.
Mhm.
It's interesting because like especially a lot of times that's not the best thing in writing. Just have like dialogue just that doesn't move the story forward and
Mhm.
stuff. Um, but he's very wordy. He kind of just like talks like very naturalistically, and I
Yeah.
think I remember hearing something about Tom King saying he got a lot of his influence from Bendis in that sense.
Mhm.
That he doesn't really write super concise dialogue, but kind of this like naturalistic,
Yeah.
uh, wordy dialogue.
Yeah. Um, and I kind of like it too because part of it is that he'll kind of throw in plot relevant details in these like I think one of the examples I can point to is like when um the school is on the trip to Osborne Industries,
Yeah,
and the tour guide is like giving the whole spiel. Um, like, I mean, she just goes on. It's kind of funny to me, but like she does kind of give some interesting information, um, like about kind of the nature of the company, um, kind of how big they are. Um, but I mean, and this isn't stuff that's like absolutely like you don't absolutely need to know how large Oscorp or Osborne Industries was or when it was founded, but it's like nice touches, that I think adds flavor to the world.
I think even like more irrelevant examples are like in school when the teachers are like giving lessons, right?
Yes, yes,
And
that's
yeah, like I found here on it says page 51 on here. It's like, in 1930, the Republicans controlled the House of Representatives. Well, like,
yeah,
well, it's like, okay, are we in school right now? Like, I mean, I
yeah.
guess.
It was yeah. It's like I just think that it really shows I think how well uh, Bendis is able to kind of make his world feel natural when he wants it to,
Yeah.
and I think it helps because I think it makes a great contrast between the the kind of grounded reality of high school and kind of that kind of drama, and then the superhero world. I also like the fact that uh, I think that Bendis with Ultimate Spider-Man portrays a more, I don't want to say realistic, but a more vulnerable Spider-Man. Obviously, this is still uh, a very, very new Spider-Man, but I mean, he takes a few shots, and one of the things that's made it kind of apparent right away is Peter's spider sense is not as it works differently in Ultimate. It's more like he feels it, but it's not it seems a little bit slower, and he still he can still take hits. It's not just like, oh, I can dodge 1,000 gunshots because Spider Sense told me.
So about that though, like I do wonder if that is this version of Spider-Man or if it's just the fact that he's young and inexperienced and like he hasn't developed this ability too much. Cause like one thing that I think of this is like, I mean, this, is totally, it's not even canon to 616 or 1610. I think it was like a what if issue I read once where Spider-Man gets like super trained or something. Like he gets like, some serious training and his powers go to like the max. And his spider sense is like so advanced by that point that he can like sense danger like before it's even, before it even like happens, like way before it even happens.
I know what I think Spider Woman, I think, has one of the spiders has like actual basic precognition. Like,
yeah, that was what it turned into in that. So I'm wondering if it's just that his spider sense is underdeveloped, like it's like a muscle that he can train like any other maybe, and that it could get like more advanced down the line.
That is true. I guess maybe I just like weaker Spider-Man. It's kind of cool to see him like, actually have a bit of difficulty with.
Yeah,
I mean, Green Goblin is obviously a pretty big threat, but it's not. It just feels more realistic, because sometimes it's like you'll have situations that occur where it's like, okay, in 616, you kind of establish like Peter can lift like, 10, 15 tons, he has his really quick spider sense that can dodge bullets, you know. And meanwhile, he has trouble fighting someone that like he should be way outclassing, and it's like, really? Is this happening?
a lot of
But
vulnerability with this Spider-Man.
yeah. So overall, if you had to give a grade for this first volume, what would you be? Where are you on it?
So I did give this like a 5 when I rated it on Goodreads, just because I'd say that that's the closest to how I felt about it. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was like a great start. And I love Bendis. I think, don't know how I haven't read this before. It's great.
I gave it a 4. I think for me, the only thing that stops me from giving it higher is the fact that I think it's a little bit slow again. I think the biggest thing for me that I think was slow was that like it seems with this Peter, like he kind of has, I mean, I guess it's kind of the thing with a teenager, like he kind of has to learn some lessons, like, or go through things like multiple times to have it stick in his head. You know, or he kind of goes through things that are kind of like similar situations multiple times.
Yeah.
You know, but and I mean, I guess some of it's like they just kind of were slower when it came to like showing stuff. Like for instance, I guess like a good example I think is like the basketball game where he took like two pages to do like a double splash for that, to kind of let it like you see the ball going through the hoop, you see Peter dunking, like he kind of takes it slow.
That's fair. Yeah.
But Yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's really solid. Um, Again, I think some of the dialogue too, it's a tad dated, but again, that's not, and I don't mean that in like the techno, like, oh, obviously technology changed and stuff. I think some of the dialogue's a little bit more um exposition-y than I think a lot of modern uh comic writing, and I think Bendis even kind of has gone better with it. Um, but yeah, overall, I think it's a 4. I think, um, again, I love the art. I do really like a lot of the interactions with Peter and Mary Jane, especially. Um, I like a lot of the changes that I guess are kind of, yeah, changes that Bendis makes to the world and to characters to kind of differentiate them. Um, I mean, oh yeah, overall, I really liked it.
Yeah, definitely. I think we agree on that. This is good. This is good comics,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
this is good Bendis.
Yeah. Um, so I have not told you or our watchers what our next comics is going to be.
I'm excited to hear it.
So I kind of was thinking about it for a while, um, and I thought that it would actually be quite fitting to do Batman Year One by Frank Miller.
Ooh, awesome. Yeah.
Because I was thinking of, and I was like, well, we did Spider-Man, we did like kind of Spider-Man Year One in a sense. So why not do Batman Year One, and kind of give us the DC superhero icon. So
I'm excited for that. It's been a while since I read that, so I definitely like to revisit it.
yeah, I'm very excited for that. So for all of our viewers, listeners out there, thank you so much for watching. And we will see you next week.